Self-leveling compound is an awesome stuff to give you a perfectly level floor. If you've got a difference in height like we have here, or holes in the floor, you can get an awesome smooth finish for your new floor. But there are a few things that you need to know, and in this video we're going to cover them all so that you can do this yourself and get a perfect finish. So this room I'm doing today, we've got two different floor heights. We've got an extension that's been done in this porch here and joined to the old 1970s property, and the levels are not quite right. So we need to bring this floor up to match the level of this one. Now that's quite common if you've removed a wall in your house and you've got two rooms that are now one. You'll sometimes get a difference in height, but there are other reasons you might be using self-leveling compounds. You've taken tiles up, you've got holes in the concrete floor, you're going over underfloor heating. There's lots of different reasons you might be using self-leveling compound, and it's important that we get it right because there is a process and there are little tips and tricks that'll get you a much better finish. Now on this floor here, we've got about a 10mm difference between this side and this side, and we'll use a product today that'll sort that difference out, no problem at all. I'll show you what that is in a minute, but what we need to do first is step number one and get the surface prepared for self-leveling. And the first step of surface preparation is to give it a little vacuum because we want to make sure we've got no loose debris or dust on the surface. Self-leveling compound is pretty forgiving, but it won't stick to loose surfaces, old loose adhesives or dust. So what we need to do, use a vacuum and give this whole thing a good clean. Once you've got anything loose off, all the dust off, we're going to prime the floor. This is an important step to the process. So our first coat of primer is a 1-to-1. We're going to have 1 part primer, 1 part water. You don't need to mix up too much. It goes a lot further than you think and you don't want it to pool. So we don't want loads of this. There we go. Perfect, let's get that on. So we'll just get that primer on. I'm just using a big brush, but like I say, a roller will be quicker. It's just a case of getting a very thin coat over the surface. You don't need to put too much on, and don't let it pool. Don't let it build up and go thick in places. Now once you've got this first coat of primer on, it'll probably take about half an hour to dry. It depends on the substrate that you're going onto. That first coat's looking pretty dry. Let's get some neat acrylic primer on there next. Same thing with this, don't let it pool, just get it on there nice and even and let it go off. Any areas where it's too thick, it's just going to take a long time to go off, and that's not what we want. We want it nice and thin, like you can see there. Whilst we wait for that primer to dry, let's have a think about where we don't want the self-leveling compound to go. So think doorways, transitions, areas where you want that leveling compound to stop. So what we need to do is create barriers for it. You can see here I've just made a small barrier to stop that from flowing into this doorway because it's just going to keep flowing, and if we don't put things in its way, it'll just keep flowing and we'll end up with a low spot and it'll run where we don't want it to run. So I've just used a small piece of old architrave that came off the door frame there. Another good way of doing this, if you watched my underfloor heating video, which I'll link in the description, is to use expanding foam. So if you've got an area where you don't want it to flow past, put a little bit of expanding foam along there and we can peel that away later once everything's gone hard. So I've got the door open, it's a nice windy mild day. That's going to dry this primer a little bit quicker. But whilst we wait, why not subscribe if you haven't already, because that allows me to bring better content to the channel, and hit like so that this video can reach more people. It's mega windy out here today, so hopefully you can hear me, but I've got a quick watch out for you before we start getting this down. First of all, make sure you got all your tools there, make sure you're ready to go because we want to hit this in one. And also if you have got a friend that can mix up for you whilst you do the laying, that is really handy because it just speeds things up and makes it a lot easier with two people. I haven't got that luxury, I'm doing it on my own today. Anyway, what we're going to use is this Larson self-leveling compound SLC 1550, and it's a flexible self-leveling compound. And if you look on the bags for all the self-leveling compounds out there on the market, they will tell you the minimum and maximum depths and what they can be used for. So this goes from 3 to 50mm, and it's got a 2-hour setting time. It can be used overboard and it can be used for underfloor heating. So it's a really versatile product. I've used it before and I really like it. It's just the one I like to use. There's lots out there on the market. So this is what we're going to use today. Another big watch out is make sure you've got enough of the stuff because you don't want to run out halfway through the job. It's vital that you've got enough. So read on the back of the bag of the coverage and make sure you've got enough for the job. Contrary to what people believe, you don't just put self-leveling compound down and leave it. It won't flow exactly where you want it to go. We do need to give it a helping hand, and that's what they're for. These just give you a mega mega finish. This is a spiked roller, and what that does is brings the air to the surface, gets all the air bubbles out, gives you a good strong finish and a nice smooth and flat finish as well. So they're really the only tools that you're gonna need to get this stuff on the floor. So let's get mixed up and get this stuff on the floor. Now, we want 4 litres of water per 20 kilogram bag. I know that because that's what it says on the back of the bag. Follow the instructions on the back of your self-leveling compound bag. And then we're going to go in with the self-leveling compound. I almost forgot my mask. This stuff's not very friendly. Don't breathe it in. And you can use a panel mixer that goes in a drill. It doesn't have to be a big one like this, but don't mix too quickly because you'll add air bubbles and it'll make it harder to work with. Now we're going to start at one end of the room and of course work our way out the door. Limit the amount of airflow that comes through the room as you lay this. Afterwards it doesn't really matter, but as you lay it we will have to shut that door. You don't want too much airflow to start with. That chemical reaction, we want to limit how quick that goes off. It'll also happen quicker on hotter days, so try not to do it on a really hot day. Also it'll be slower on a really cold day, so try pick a nice in-between day. Right, what we're going to do now is get this poured evenly in the area that we want to work in. You can see it starts to find its own level, but what we want to do is just use our float or plastering trowel just to help it. So you'll see if I do this, a couple of little lumps in there actually. My mistake, you want to get all those lumps out when you do your mixing. But you can see I'm just encouraging this to go where I want it to go. You'll probably find you need to work it into corners. You often find it doesn't go in corners very well. So I'll just use my float just to work that into the corner there. So it's really hard to film in there. I'm going to bring that up to the level that I want over there, start working my way that way through the room, and then I'll show you a little bit more about the tools I use to get the perfect finish. So you can see we're starting to work this way. As you're mixing up, if you're doing it on your own, it is going to thin out very slightly between each bucket load. So my advice is pour on that seam and work a little bit with the trowel back over just to keep the thickness. Keep an eye on your levels as you work through the room. By working that with the float, not only do I keep the depth because I push a little bit back in, but I bring air to the surface and I smooth the whole thing out. So I've already done this up the other end. Let's get the spiked roller in there and give this a couple of rolls over the top. Now that spiked roller, what you're going to notice is it's going to bring the air to the surface and it's going to smooth the whole thing out. And of course, just overlap the spiked roller on the previous bucket because that's just going to help to transition those two bucketfuls together. So I'm going to keep working my way to the door. If you're a beginner, of course, smaller rooms, less intricate rooms will be a little bit easier. One thing we do all have in common is with our DIY or trade, we all need tools, and awesome tools at that. And that is where my new website on my shirt here, Ultimate Tool Competitions, comes in. Because every single week going forward, we're going to have giveaway competitions for loads of brand new tools. It doesn't matter if you're Team Teal, Team Yellow or Team Red, there's going to be tools for you. Our launch competition this week is this huge DeWalt giveaway. You've got a 5-piece power tool kit. You get the impact driver, the combi drill, the multi-tool, the blower and the circular saw. So it's a whole kit to get you started on your DIY or trade journey. You get the batteries in the case with that as well, a couple of 5 amp hour batteries, so that's mega. We've limited the tickets on this, so there's hardly any tickets and it's just £1 to enter. So the odds are great. You'll notice there's also some Milwaukee stuff in the background. There's a mystery box giveaway. Hint, there is going to be a power tool in there. And we've got a Uni Light giveaway as well. Now our mission is simple, to give you guys the tools that you need at really good odds. So there's not going to be hundreds of thousands of tickets or even tens of thousands of tickets. There's great odds to win your dream tools. And that's why I've put a link down below in the description with a code next to it, EarlyBird10, for your early supporters. You can get 10% off your tickets this week. So head over to ultimatetoolcompetitions.co.uk to get yourself in the draw for some awesome tools. Now we're really just concentrating on this last bit that we get the heights right. What you'll notice if you start to leak that self-leveling compound over onto this concrete here, it'll suck it dry really quickly. So we've got to work fairly quickly at this bit just to make sure we've got a nice smooth transition if we've got a height difference like this. So I'm just using my trowel to remove any high spots and fill any low spots like in the corner there and give a nice smooth transition. Really putting the finishing touches into it now. getting it lovely and smooth. You can go over it with the speed skim. It's a bigger blade, it's going to give you a flatter finish. I don't think I need to in this case. This is looking really good. If in about an hour's time you get any big ridges or anything like that, what you can do is come back and flatten them out with a wet trowel. Probably best to get it perfect the first time, but you can try and have a go at that if you do get any ridges in it. I've given it one last going over with the spiked roller and it looks absolutely perfect. I'm really happy with it. Now in about 2 to 4 hours, we'll be able to put light foot traffic over this. So we're gonna come back with my big spirit level and we're gonna have a look at how good a job I've done. And we'll see if I'm any good or not. The tools you need for this job, by the way, are gonna be linked in the description below. I'll see you when this dries. So it's dry enough to take light foot traffic. And you can see there, it's absolutely perfectly level. But what about that bit over there where the height of this floor needed to come up to match the extension? Well, if I grab my trowel, hopefully you'll be able to see that it's absolutely perfect. We've matched those heights perfectly. So I'm really happy with the job. I'm going to get up off the floor actually. And this shows if you use good materials and good techniques, you can get the perfect level finish. I hope it's helped. If it has, click one of these because you're bound to find them helpful as well. And I'll see you in the next one. And don't forget, check out UTC for me. See you soon.